Hello, welcome back to Saber Sports. My name is Nina Washington, and I'm with Isaiah McGuire and Taj Caver. The NBA season is back in business tomorrow. So what are your predictions for the NBA season?
I'll start it off. I mean, first thing, I think let's go ahead and talk about the Rookie of the Year.
Absolutely.
I think the clear number one right now is Cooper Flagg. Obviously, he's kind of in a great situation, a situation that most rookies don't walk into where his team is already good. He's not going to be asked to do too much. He is a very high floor player, very good defender, especially off ball. He has great instincts. And also, they recently just came out and he said he's going to basically play point guard for the team. So playing point guard, he's going to have the ball in his hands a lot. He has shown that he's a capable decision maker throughout this preseason. I think he's the clear number one.
Absolutely. I would agree with that, but also raise you absolutely Ace Bailey, the number 5 overall pick from the Utah Jazz. That young man right there is special. He has something about him, and like everyone was on him in the beginning of the season about his attitude and how he played. But during summer league and during preseason, it seems that he's really going to come into his own and definitely be one of those favorites that we have to be for a competitive Rookie of the Year battle.
Right, I agree with Cooper Flagg, but my pick is Ace Bailey. You know, we see him in the preseason. He even had KD on his toes, so I really think it's going to be Ace Bailey. Because Rookie of the Year is not about how many wins your team gets. Like you said before, it's all about opportunity. And I can see him having more opportunity to like be on the floor, keep people on their toes than Cooper Flagg.
Okay, I hear y'all out, but with Cooper Flagg, I think the biggest thing is that most of the time rookies, you're kind of put in a spot where you're asked to do too much or you're asked to do something you're not ready to do, especially when it comes to wings and guards. You know, big men, a big's role is a little more stationary. It's not as much going on, but for a wing and a guard, someone who's gonna have the ball in their hands on the perimeter, you kind of have to be able to rely on the people around you. And a lot of times going to a bad team where Ace Bailey's going, you know, there are some young talented players. You got Keontae George out there. You got some young guys that can play, but at the end of the day, that Jazz team's probably gonna be in the lottery, top 10, top 5 pick again. The Mavericks are a team that's looking to compete for I would say the finals this year. They're looking at depending on Kyrie Irving's ACL injury.
Absolutely.
But you have Anthony Davis, you're still going to have PJ Washington, you have Derek Lively, and you have Klay Thompson. You're running a lineup where the shortest person is Klay Thompson, who's 6'6", 6'7". Cooper Flagg's now in a perfect position where he has big, tall wings, very versatile players around him, and he doesn't have to do that much. He just has to facilitate, play defense, score when he has the chance, and I think really, as long as he shows a little bit of progress with his jump shot, I think it's him.
And absolutely. And then we could also just talk about the point of, you know, when he was at Duke, right, his time there, he was already a standout when he got there, right? But it took him time. And then once he turned, 19, he just hit a whole other ceiling, hit a whole other level, leading that Duke team to the Final Four, which really and truly that Duke team should have been in the championship game, but that's a story for another day. But absolutely, if he can, you know, develop more and absolutely just become like a better player, then absolutely I could agree with you that Cooper Flagg would be the best pick for Rookie of the Year.
I feel that I would say that, you know, as long as he does what he needs to do and not too much, he's going to be fine, especially, you know, barring injury. You know, you can't predict things with the NBA, but I think it's a good race this year. I think this year is way more talented than last year. This is extremely talented draft class.
Absolutely.
All right, what about most valuable player?
That is, wow, okay, that's a debate. I think as far as MVP and everything like that goes, there's obvious picks, right? Shai Gilgeous-Alexander coming off of a historic season, scoring champ, MVP, finals MVP, NBA champion, looking to repeat and bring another championship back to Oklahoma City. But I would be remiss if I did not mention that Nikola Jokic is, without a doubt, one of the best players, if not the best player in the entire world. He had a very disappointing end to the season last year in, I believe, round 1. Jokic always shows out and always, you know, has a way of just being the best regardless of what's going on around him. So I would absolutely say that Jokic would be my pick this year to win the MVP for the 4th time in his career.
All right.
I think for me personally, I'm going to go Giannis here. I think he has a bounce-back season. The Bucks had a down year last year, obviously, with Damian Lillard, introducing Damian Lillard to the team. Giannis is functionally a point guard. I think a lot of people don't understand Giannis's play style just because he happens to be almost 7 foot tall, 250 pounds. He has the ball. He's best when the ball's in his hands. He can't really play with a player like Damian Lillard, who's ball dominant, who needs the ball. you know, his best years were Chris Middleton and Drew Holiday. Drew Holiday is a player who, as we can see in his role that he played with the Celtics, really doesn't need the ball at all to impact the game. But best as a defender, can hide in the dunker spot if he needs to. Giannis now has the ability to have the ball whenever he wants it. He has guys around him. They go and get Miles Turner. Miles Turner is the perfect big, stretch the floor, not going to clog the paint for Giannis. And Giannis has also turned himself into a great mid-range shooter. He's a very, very effective in that area. So I think that Giannis has a really, really good shot at it this year. And I think the bar is kind of low. The East isn't great this year.
Absolutely.
In recent memory, Westbrook won when they were the 6th seed. They had 47 wins. So you're not asking him to be the #1 seed in the East. I think you're asking him to get 50 wins and maybe be 5, 4. And I think he has a good shot if he does that.
Right, right. My thing is, we've seen Jokic win, we've seen Giannis win, we even seen SGA just last year, but I believe it will be Luka this year for most valuable player. You know, Luka has always been in the mix of, you know, most valuable player, but this year we've seen, like, he's taking himself pretty seriously. He slimmed down a bit, and I feel like this year with year 2 with the coach, JJ Redick, you know, he's having some backup for Luka. He brought in some more players, some more talent around Luka to really give him that boost. And I feel like he has a great chance of winning most valuable player.
Absolutely. And even in a stacked West, like, that's going to be his main thing. Can he outplay the best players in the West? As I mentioned before, Jokic, SGA. But I also want to raise a contender from the Eastern Conference as well. As you mentioned before, Taj, you know, the Eastern Conference is going to be very, very weak this year. Losses from Tyrese Halliburton and Jason Tatum also. So I have to raise you Jalen Brunson. Now, Jalen Brunson had a very impressive year last year, leading the New York Knicks to the Eastern Conference Finals. Now, obviously, everyone believes that that team should have gone to the championship, but that would have robbed us of one of the best finals I've ever seen in my life personally. But I think that he's going to have a bounce back year. New York is definitely going to be a contender, and this is going to be a year where it's going to be make or break for them. So I think in that position, Jalen Brunson is going to be in a spot where he can shine. He can do everything he needs to do, and he might be a dark horse pick for that MVP, for the MVP trophy, just depending on what all goes on in New York.
I'm not mad at that. I think just for Brunson specifically, I think it's very dependent on how well the Knicks perform, though. Obviously, getting a new coach, they get Tibbs out of there. I really don't think that they had a reason to get Tibbs out of there, to be honest.
Neither do I.
I don't know what the logic on that one is, but it's kind of on him now. He's the head of this team. He's the one that's going to make this thing go. And he has the proper tools around him, so he needs to put it together. But I really do think that it's very hard for small guards to win major awards, and especially in this NBA, as you can see, the person who won it last year is a 6'6" point guard. You know, Jalen Brunson. Yeah, the height thing, he's gonna perform, but it's very difficult to be effective every game at that height. And so that's one of the things that you have to look for. And quite honestly, as of recently, bigs or taller players have dominated the league. So the guy I would raise as my dark horse, as long as he stays healthy, I would throw Wemby in that conversation, honestly. Depending on how the Spurs end up looking this year, they do have De'Aaron Fox. Stephon Castle is really, really good as well. Dylan Harper, you bring him into the fold. You have Keldon Johnson. You have a very good team around him. It's a good mix of vets and young players. As long as Wemby can stay healthy, I think he's probably he's almost a shoo-in for the Defensive Player of the Year. As long as I think he can average 26, 27 in game, maybe give you 12 rebounds and 3 or 4 blocks. I think that's an MVP caliber season, depending on where they shake out in the West.
Absolutely, and I can definitely raise you the Defensive Player of the Year award. Definitely Wemby. In my opinion, he got robbed his rookie year of being Defensive Player of the Year.
I agree.
Most league in blocks and rebounds, defensively and offensively. Wemby is a great player overall, and I think I could definitely see him being an MVP.
All right, when we come back, we'll be discussing who deserves to be named the best player in college football.
Hampton University. You might hear us call it our home by the sea, but it's more than a place. It's a legacy, a force, a movement, a rising tide, where history walks with you and the future opens wide. We push boundaries in technology, aerospace, and beyond. Our R2 Carnegie Research status isn't just a title, it's a promise to lead, to discover, to innovate. We dream in excellence because it's the only language we speak. From groundbreaking research to life-saving breakthroughs, the Hampton Proton Cancer Institute proves that healing fuels change. Like the Emancipation Oak, we stand strong. Our history endures. Our truth sustains. Home to the oldest African-American museum in the nation, we tell the stories of those who paved the way and forge new paths for those yet to come. And at the heart of it all, our students. Bright minds, bold spirits, boundless potential. That's why we deliver the #1 student experience in America, because at Hampton, we don't just educate, we elevate. We mold innovators, healers, creators, stars. From C-suites to Broadway, from labs to launch pads, we don't see limits, just a duty to rise. From the boardroom to the global stage, our graduates don't just take up space, they transform it. The world doesn't just watch our graduates rise, it feels their impact. Because when we move, the world pays attention. Anchored in legacy, reaching for infinity. We are Hampton University, the standard of excellence.
We're nearing the college football playoffs, yet the noise for Heisman seems to be quite as quiet as. For the first time in a long time, so what do you guys think? Who deserves Heisman?
I'm going to start us off here.
Okay.
This is going to be a very dark horse pick. I'm going to say Diego Pavia, the starting quarterback for Vanderbilt. Absolutely, that young man right there, what he is doing for that team is nothing short of historic. It's nothing short of just great. He's thrown for over 1,500 yards and is on pace to exceed his passing yard totals from last season. He's leading Vanderbilt to his season, as I said. First 6-1 start in 75 years, since 1950. What he's doing has not been done in the past 2 generations. Like that in of itself is just mind-boggling. And the only blemish on his record is what? A loss to Alabama, the #4 team in the nation right now. That's absolutely like what else can we say outside of that? That's a young man who can be a Heisman candidate or even a Heisman winner.
I'm not mad at that. Me personally, I'm going to go Ty Simpson here. As you bring up Alabama, Ty Simpson has completely turned around my opinion of him. Early on, I was not a big believer, especially the way he played against Florida State. Just straight up, I wasn't a believer. But he's now been able to put it together, and that Alabama team is really good. They're #4 in the country, as you mentioned. But he's been able to – he's top 10 in passing touchdowns. He's top 10 in passing. I'm pretty sure he's only thrown 1 interception this year. So he's taking care of the ball. And then also leading your team in a stacked SEC is never something that's easy to do. He has a lot of opportunities later in the back half of this season as well to prove himself. The SEC has the benefit of being a gauntlet in itself, so you're going to see him play big games because it's conference play. You're not going to have to rely upon, okay, early in the season we played a team that was out of conference. They're supposed to be good. You're not going to have to rely upon that thing. And I think a lot of other quarterbacks have to rely on that. A lot of other players have to rely on that. But when you're in the SEC, you get a new challenge almost every week. So I think I would go with Ty Simpson as my favorite right now.
Yeah, I'm going to have to agree with you, Taj, because he's my Heisman too. You see, what you need to be a Heisman is to exceed expectations from a team standpoint and from your own standpoint with like the stats and your certain threshold. And yes, since the week 2, he has taken Bama to a whole nother level. I mean, that Florida State game, yeah, that was that game. But Ty Simpson, we're looking at over 1,900 yards, 18 touchdowns, and only 1 interception. So he is most definitely taking care of the ball, putting his work out. And he is currently one of the hottest one of the hottest quarterbacks in the country. His last 4 games, he came with ranked opponents like Georgia, Vandy, and Mizzou, and he lit them up basically with over 40 yards passed in those games. And just this weekend, his performance against Tennessee, he completed 19 out of 29 passes with 2 touchdowns and no interceptions. That's Heisman work right there. Now, you know, he has so much control over Alabama's offense. And now, if he keeps it up, I believe he can most definitely be the Heisman this year.
And absolutely, and you brought up, exceeding expectations from a team standpoint. This is an Alabama team who everyone thought was going to get Kalen DeBoer fired.
Yeah.
Right. Let's go ahead and just get that
Okay.
out of the way ASAP. Right. This Alabama team is not the dynasty that it used to be under Coach Saban, but it is still a contender, absolutely. But you talked about also just exceeding expectations and everything else. I want to raise you Fernando Mendoza,
Yeah.
the quarterback for the Indiana Hoosiers. That young man right there, what he is doing is incredible. The Big Ten this year is a very, very stacked conference. Ohio State, Oregon. He went to Oregon and beat Oregon, which at the time everyone was saying that's a championship contender, that's a CFB semifinalist at least, right? What he's doing and everything else. He has a 74% completion rating in conference, over 1,000 passing yards, 12 touchdowns. What he's doing this year is just nothing short of phenomenal, and I would not be surprised if he walks away with the Heisman Award.
I agree with that. I'm going to raise another player in the Big Ten as well, Julian Sayin. I think they are very similar in that their teams obviously being 1 and 2 with Ohio State and Indiana, but they don't have to play each other until potentially the Big Ten championship. They don't have to see each other at all. So there's no way, if they were to clash, that would kind of knock one of them just a tier below. But as long as they both kind of stay undefeated, I feel like you're kind of in the same boat where we've ran the gauntlet. We've played in the Big Ten. We're in a great conference, and we just have to perform, and that's really it. And Julian Sayin right now is playing really, really well. Again, he's tied for 3rd in the country with 19 pass touchdowns. I know you mentioned Mendoza is number 1. He's tied for 1st with 21, I'm pretty sure.
Yes.
So, and they have the 4th best offense in the country over at Indiana. But Ohio State, even though their star is the defense, Sayin finds a way to keep them on the field and give that defense just enough rest to be productive all the time. Obviously, he does have Carnell Tate and Jeremiah Smith, so he has 2 of the best receivers in the country.
Absolutely.
On the same team. That's 1A, 1B. That's not really a wide receiver 1, wide receiver 2 situation.
Exactly.
But even watching the plays that they make, he's putting the balls in spots that they're the only player that's going to get it. And really, that does take some level of skill, especially being his first time in a full start role.
Yeah.
I think that's something that you really have to highlight, and I think that Sayin does have a good chance here, depending on what Ty Simpson and Fernando Mendoza, who I still think they're in front of him, depending on what they do. I think Sayin does have a chance because I don't see Ohio State losing again this year.
Absolutely, and then you brought up, the fact that they probably won't see each other until the Big Ten championship, right? And even if one of them, and even when one of them loses in the championship, if they happen to get there, right? What's the biggest knock on the resume? That you lost the Big Ten championship? If that's your if that's your floor, then that's a really good case for you to say, hey, I was a runner-up in the very competitive Big Ten, which has not been this competitive since before that I can remember, right? But then again, on the Fernando Mendoza point, right? You brought it up. He's ranked 1st in the country for touchdowns. Can you name 2 receivers from Indiana right now?
That's a good point.
Exactly.
That's a good point.
And he's finding a way to make those receivers, make them like focal points of that offense, and making sure that they can be effective and have instant impact on that team.
I agree with that, but what I will say is that he does have Curt Cignetti. I think Cignetti is one of the best coaches in college football, and as much as an Ohio native, as much as I love Ryan Day, Ryan Day does not always get it done offensively.
Absolutely.
And so Sayin producing with Ryan Day, within a Ryan Day offense, is really great. But I think that for Indiana, with Cignetti obviously just inked another deal to say that he's going to be around, that he's not looking at any other job.
Specifically Penn State.
Specifically Penn State.
All right. That was a great discussion. Now, after this break, we'll discuss how certain teams can return to its former glory. Penn State had a disaster season. Everything that can go wrong went wrong. Penn State started pre-ranked at number 2 at the start of the season. Now that drops to 3 and 4 after losing 4 straight and firing their head coach, James Franklin. How can they turn things around? Now, me personally, I didn't expect Penn State to turn out like this. Just 9 months ago, like what was said, they were the number 2 team in the country, and they were returning a ton of players, and just 3 weeks ago, they ranked 3rd in the country. Now, things have completely unraveled. And I think this season for Penn State is not what anybody expected, really. And each of those, there was injuries, you know, with their QB, Allen. I mean, not Allen.
Drew Allard.
Drew
Yep.
Allard, yes. And he's out for the rest of the season. And then their head coach just got fired. Is there really a comeback from this disaster? I don't know.
Well, first off, I'm going to say, shout out Drew Allard. You know, he's from Northeast Ohio, Medina kid. So I got to shout him out as a Cleveland native. I got to shout him out. But, boy, that team is that team's a letdown right now. I really don't know how much of it I can attribute to talent, because that team is very talented. That is an extremely talented team. And you're not going to be ranked that high preseason to not have some form of talent on your team, some form. There's a reason that people see that in Penn State. But I think, honestly, James Franklin has showed this over the past couple years, and since he's been there, even though great record, performed well, you know, he's putting his team in position to be in the college football playoffs pretty much every year. He doesn't win big games. That's kind of the big thing, is that he doesn't win big games. And then I think what happened this year, obviously, you have two really, really bad losses when you end up losing to Northwestern
And
UCLA.
Absolutely.
Those are two really bad losses. And so the ends couldn't justify the means anymore. Because normally, okay, we lose to Ohio State. We lose to Oregon. We lose to, you know, okay, I can't really get too mad at you for losing that game. But you lose to UCLA and Northwestern, yeah, it might be time for a change. We got to look for something else.
So I think absolutely, and I will agree with you on that point, it's time to look for something else. James Franklin, over his career at Penn State, 104 wins, I believe 42 losses. Obviously more of a winner than he is a loser. As you mentioned, though, can't win the big games. 12-year career at Penn State, and he only has 2 Big Ten championships. That's not a good look on anyone's resume. Like, I'm sorry, but like every single year, he's given the assets to succeed, to be a national power. But it's every single year you put on a schedule for Penn State, you go ahead and ink 2 losses. And those 2 losses are, as you said, Ohio State and Oregon. That happens every single year. You can't continue to have the same things happen to you every single year and not expect something to happen. Like the climate that we're in as far as sports as a whole now is the fact that if you cannot win now with what I've gave you, right?
Yeah.
You're gone.
Yeah.
Immediately, right? And if you can't win, then there's no place for you anywhere, right? So James Franklin just got fired. We see it over in Florida. Billy Napier just got fired. And then, like, you know, Penn State is looking for new coaches, everything else. And then Kurt Cignetti, like, what, a day or a few hours after that was announced, inked his deal with Indiana to say, like, hey, this might be a coaching job that nobody wants because the expectations are too high. And if you do not win immediately, then you're gonna be gone as soon as you were brought in. There's no way I think for Penn State to bring this back. As you mentioned before, they lost to UCLA, which had 0 wins before they played Penn State. That's not a good look on anyone's resume, especially a Big Ten contender or a contender that should have been a contender in the Big Ten for Penn State. There's no way to bring this back.
Yeah, and add in the fact that they had a new offensive coordinator. Nico has not played that great, but
exactly.
You know, running joke that Nico got 2 coaches fired, his and James Franklin, because of that win. So I think it's pretty clear that within the state of college football, especially now with NIL, now there's a lot more money being tossed around. Results have to happen now. You can't spend a year trying to figure it out, 2 years trying to figure it out. And I think I agree with you that the expectations of a Penn State program might be a little too high for some coaches because you're going to come into a situation where you can't really build your own program. It's rare that you see someone just flip a program around just like that. Exactly. You know, that's not going to happen. Cignetti's case with Indiana is rare. Like, that doesn't just happen most of the time. Most of the time, you have to walk into a situation where you know you're going to perform. And if you're looking at a Penn State team who's 3-4, hasn't played well, and I'm a coach and I'm looking at that, is that really where I want to be? Because that's the same team that has performed well enough to be in a college football playoff in past years, has performed well enough to compete for Big Ten championships, has had talents at that level, has had talent that equals a Michigan, that equals Ohio State, that equals, you know, Oregon since they've joined the Big Ten. your talent level says you should be there, but we're not there yet. And if I come in and I don't perform, or our record is worse than when it was James Franklin there, then what did I come for? I think that's what people are going to say. That's how people are going to look at you is, what are you really here for? Because it's the same thing. We could have just kept James Franklin for that matter. We didn't have to pay him his huge buyout for no reason.
Right.
And then, as you mentioned, right, with the whole state of NIL, every single year, a player is in free agency. Think about how crazy the NBA or the NFL would be if after every single season, every single player had free agency and they could just choose wherever they wanted to go, right? That's chaos. And I think, before this, Penn State had a legitimate case to get top recruits to their program just because of name value and also just production, right? They're always going to be a Big Ten power. They're always going to do something to get them in the conversation, get them in the CFP, and everything else, right? But now you lost 4 straight games, and now it's like, like, what can you do now? You're going off name brand alone. You can't live on that for too much longer.
We're going to step away for a short break, but when we come back, we're going to talk about NFL football. The NFL this season has been full of surprises. A lot of teams and people had the playoffs are struggling, and there are plenty of surprises of teams sprouting in the NFL. Who will be the best team this year?
If I can be completely honest, this NFL season has been a surprise only because the best teams that we thought were going to be, the contenders are not the contenders right now, right? Kansas City, they're supposed to be always the perennial powerhouse of the NFL, and the fall off that they are experiencing needs to be studied ASAP, right? We have the Philadelphia Eagles, okay? They're supposed to be repeating, and this looks like the crumble from when they won the championship with Carson Wentz. Right? But then you have the surprise teams that just sprouted up, for instance, Tampa Bay. You have the Indianapolis Colts, right? The Rams right now, they look good. The Baltimore Ravens are at I don't even know how to describe what's been going on over there in Baltimore, but it can't be explained. I don't know how this can happen. I understand injuries and everything else in between, but that was a team where, it was supposed to have gone better than this, right? And it hasn't. So there's no way for them to, in my opinion at least, to turn this around. There are plenty of other surprise teams. Right now, Atlanta, although they lost last week, or not last week, but yesterday, they had the number 1 rated defense and the number 2 rated offense, right? The NFC South is consistently a joke of the NFL. It's always been the worst conference that the NFL offers. But at the same time, you can always count on the Falcons and the Bucs to give you at least some kind of good back and forth every year. So I don't know. I think that this is a year where the NFL is going to be very, very shocking. And I honestly would not be surprised if Indianapolis might walk out just because of how surprising this year is and how unexpected it is. Absolutely.
I'm not mad at that. For my best team, I'm going to go with the Buccaneers for sure. I think Baker Mayfield has been playing like the best quarterback in the NFL this year. I think he would be my pick for MVP. They sit at 5-1. They play tonight. They do play tonight, which I do think they will beat the Lions tonight also. But really, that offense is potent. And you're considering that Mike Evans and Chris Godwin have not played really. And so even with that, you got young guys. You got Tez Johnson in there. You have to throw, because you probably don't expect him to play. You probably didn't even think he was going to play that much, but now he's in the lineup. Egbuka is the best rookie receiver in the league right now. He's 8th in yards in the league, and he's tied for 2nd in touchdowns with 5. So right now you have one of the best budding young offensive weapons in the NFL, combined with Baker Mayfield, who's been playing very, very well. They've been able to lead. He's been able on 1 interception and 1 fumble this year. They only have two giveaways this year right now. So the offense is not turning the ball over. They're playing well. I think the Buccaneers are a team that really has a good shot in an NFC that your Eagles don't look too great. They're still really good, still a really good team, but offensively it's up and down, very up and down. I think you have to focus on a team like the Buccaneers and also the Rams. I think the other team I would throw out there is the Rams. The Rams defense is for real. 2nd in defensive points per game. They only give up about 16, 17 points a game. And then they're second in sacks. They have 26 sacks, only behind, I'm pretty sure, the Broncos. So that defense is real. Matthew Stafford is still playing really, really well. Obviously, having Puka Nacua and Devontae Adams helps. That really, really helps. But you have a team that is really good. That Rams team is really good, and they find ways to win. And obviously, you can't understate having Sean McVay there. So I think those two teams, for me, would be the two best teams in the NFL.
Yeah, I agree with you. I said my best team is the Buccaneers as well. You know, currently they're 5-1, and the Buccaneers are the top rating at a strong performance. They're very strong offensively and defensively, especially with their quarterback, Baker Mayfield. And, you know, they just have major success this season so far. Yeah.
Absolutely. And then, as I stated before, right, the NFC South is a joke amongst the NFL.
Yeah.
Right? There's, like, the last time I think they were actually a competent and, like, competitive conference was, like, what? When Matt Ryan, Cam Newton, and Drew Brees, and what was that? About almost a decade ago?
2015.
That was almost a decade ago.
Yep.
Like, that was the last time the NFC South was taken seriously as a serious conference. But I would not be surprised if this year, because every single year, right, me, as a Falcons fan, right, I'm biased towards this, right? But every single year, the Falcons show out maybe for a little bit of the year, have very, very stagnant offense. But then when they get to playing against Tampa Bay, that's kind of when everything, you know, starts to turn up and everything else, right? It's a rivalry for a reason. I would not be surprised if the Falcons in Tampa Bay, if that's going to be, like, their next game is going to be the clincher for the NFC South. I would not be surprised.
I think I'm going to jump gears here. I'm going to go to the AFC. We talked a lot about NFC teams. I'm going to talk about the AFC. The Patriots have played really, really well as well.
Absolutely.
Drake May is playing ahead of schedule for sure. He's playing very, very well right now. But I still don't think they're better than the Bills. I really can't see it. I don't see them being better than the Bills this entire season. But I'm gonna give credit where it's due. Drake May deserves his credit. That team deserves their credit. Then also, I'm gonna say that, you know, the AFC North, as a Clevelander, it's hard to watch that division right now because the Ravens are bad. My Browns are not great. We have the best defense in the league, and it doesn't matter because our offense is horrible.
Exactly.
We can't score, even though we beat the Dolphins yesterday. But I still think that the Steelers are a viable option right now. Obviously, Aaron Rodgers has actually been playing pretty well. A good defensive unit. You bring in Jalen Ramsey, they look pretty good. But the Bengals, they lost to the Bengals this past week. I think the Broncos also look very, very good. Obviously, out of the AFC West. You talked a little bit about the Chiefs kind of having a little bit of a down year, not looking the same. I think the Chiefs are still there because Patrick Mahomes is probably still a top 3 quarterback in the NFL. Kind of the guy you never can count out. So I think that's going to be a competitive race towards the end of this year, but I don't think you can understate what the Broncos are doing and what Bo Nix is doing, especially after their comeback win last night.
All right, that's all we have for this episode of Saber Sports. Please make sure to share this video and follow us on Instagram at Saber Sports TV. I'm Nina Washington with Taj Caver and Isaiah McGuire, and we thank you for watching Saber Sports.